The words hit me like a freight truck at full speed. Dead weight. That's what Derek Jameson called me in front of the entire board. 28 years of my life, reduced to 2 syllables of corporate poison. Brian's replaceable, he continued, his voice carrying that Harvard MBA smugness I'd grown to despise. We need fresh blood, not dinosaurs clinging to outdated methods. I sat there, stunned. My hands trembled as I reached for my coffee cup, the same mug I'd used for over 2 decades, the one with the faded Winland Logistics logo. The room spun slightly. 28 years. I'd built this company from 12 employees to over 3,000. I'd negotiated the deals that made us the 3rd largest logistics firm on the East Coast. And now this 34-year-old MBA was calling me dead weight. Security will escort you out, Derek said, barely glancing in my direction. Clean out your office by 5. I remember driving home that October afternoon, my hands still shaking on the steering wheel. 28 years at Winland Logistics. I'd started as a junior analyst fresh out of college, working 16-hour days in a cramped basement office that smelled like mold and broken dreams. Old man Harrison Winland himself had hired me. You've got hunger in your eyes, son, he'd said, shaking my hand with calloused fingers. That's worth more than any fancy degree. Harrison built the company from nothing, hauling freight in his own truck before expanding into full-scale logistics management. He understood loyalty, hard work, the value of relationships built over decades. When Harrison passed 5 years ago, he left the company to his daughter Emma. She'd been brilliant, an operations genius who understood both the technical and human sides of the business. We'd worked together seamlessly, growing Winland from a regional player to a national powerhouse. But Emma died in that car accident 18 months ago, and everything changed. The board brought in Derek Jameson, a hotshot from McKinsey with a reputation for aggressive optimization. Within 6 months, he'd fired 30% of the workforce, outsourced our customer service to Bangladesh, and implemented what he called lean operational protocols. Translation: cut costs, maximize quarterly profits, and damn the long-term consequences. I had tried to warn him. Our clients, companies like Bridgewater Manufacturing, Coastal Steel, and Phoenix Distribution, they valued relationships. They'd stayed with us through economic downturns because they trusted us. Because they trusted me. Numbers don't lie, Brian, Derek had said during our last meeting before the board presentation. Your division's profit margins are down 8% year over year. That's unacceptable in today's market. He didn't understand that those margins reflected investments in client relationships, redundant systems for reliability, and the kind of service that kept customers loyal for decades. But Derek only saw spreadsheets and quarterly reports. Now, sitting in my driveway, I thought about my wife Jennifer and our daughter Katie, who was starting her sophomore year at Northwestern. The mortgage, the college tuition, the retirement savings I'd planned to start growing more aggressively in my final working years. 28 years of my life, dismissed as dead weight. The first month after my termination, I wallowed. I drank too much coffee, watched too much cable news, and sent out resumes to companies that barely acknowledged my existence. 53 years old with nearly 3 decades at one company, I was either overqualified or too expensive for most positions. But during those long, bitter weeks, something crystallized in my mind. I knew Winland's operations better than anyone alive. I knew every client's shipping patterns, their pain points, their procurement cycles. I knew which suppliers offered the best rates, which trucking companies delivered on time, which warehouses had capacity during peak seasons. More importantly, I knew the relationships. Tom Bradley at Bridgewater Manufacturing had been my client for 15 years. We'd weathered 3 recessions together, and I'd saved his company millions through strategic routing optimizations. Lisa Henderson at Coastal Steel trusted me enough to give Winland exclusive contracts worth $40 million annually. These weren't just business relationships, they were friendships built on mutual respect and proven results. Derek, in his infinite wisdom, had assigned these accounts to junior associates barely out of college. He'd also implemented his efficiency protocols, automated systems that removed human oversight from critical decisions. I'd heard through industry contacts that shipments were being delayed, costs were rising, and client satisfaction was plummeting. The plan formed slowly, like a photograph developing in chemical baths. I couldn't compete with Winland directly, they had infrastructure, capital, and market position. But I could offer something Derek's MBA-optimized operation couldn't: personal service, relationship-based solutions, and the deep industry knowledge that comes from 3 decades in the trenches. I spent December and January quietly researching market analysis, competitor positioning, regulatory requirements for starting a logistics firm. I studied every aspect of Derek's restructuring, identifying the gaps his efficiency measures had created. Most importantly, I began reaching out to former colleagues who'd been casualties of his optimization drive. Michael Torres, Winland's former operations director, had been restructured 3 months after my departure. Rita Williams, who'd managed our West Coast operations for 12 years, was made redundant when Derek consolidated regional offices. James Clark, our best sales director, had been replaced by a 26-year-old with an MBA but no industry experience. By February, I had the foundation of a team. By March, I had a business plan. By April, I had financing, partly from my own savings, partly from a group of investors who'd watched Derek's systematic destruction of Winland's culture with growing concern. The company would be called Meridian Logistics. Small, lean, but built on relationships and service quality that larger firms couldn't match. May 15th. That's when I made my first call. "Tom, it's Brian. I hope you're doing well." Tom Bradley's voice warmed immediately. "Brian. Jesus, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. How are you holding up?" We talked for 20 minutes about family, golf, the usual small talk that Derek's efficiency protocols had eliminated from business relationships. Then Tom brought up the elephant in the room. "I have to tell you, Brian, things haven't been the same since you left. That new kid they assigned to my account, Kevin something, he's probably a nice guy, but he doesn't understand my business. Last month they routed a critical shipment through a warehouse that was already at capacity. Delayed my entire production schedule by 4 days. I'm sorry to hear that, Tom. Actually, that's part of why I'm calling. I've started a new company. Meridian Logistics. Small operation, but we're focused on the kind of personalized service that's disappearing from the industry." The conversation that followed was everything I'd hoped for. Tom was frustrated with Winland's new approach, concerned about their automated decision-making systems, and interested in exploring alternatives. We scheduled a meeting for the following week. The pattern repeated itself over the next month. Lisa Henderson at Coastal Steel was dealing with routing inefficiencies that were costing her company hundreds of thousands annually. David Kim at Phoenix Distribution was frustrated by Winland's new customer service protocols. Tickets that used to be resolved with a phone call now required formal requests processed through multiple departments. I wasn't poaching clients aggressively. I was simply offering solutions to problems that Derek's optimization had created. When Tom Bradley decided to move his West Coast distribution contract to Meridian, it wasn't because I'd undercut Winland's pricing, it was because we offered better service at competitive rates. Meanwhile, Derek was making more strategic mistakes. In June, he announced another round of layoffs, eliminating what he called redundant operational oversight. Translation: he fired the experienced logistics coordinators who caught problems before they became disasters. Michael Torres, now my operations director, shook his head when he heard the news. He's removing every safety net in the system. It's like flying a plane and deciding you don't need backup instruments. By July, we'd landed 3 major clients and a dozen smaller accounts. Our revenue was approaching $2 million annually, not huge, but substantial for a 3-month-old company. More importantly, our client satisfaction scores were off the charts. We were proving that personalized service and relationship-based solutions could compete with automated efficiency. Derek, I learned through industry contacts, was starting to notice the client defections. At the quarterly board meeting, he'd attributed the losses to market volatility and temporary competitive pressures. He'd also announced plans to win back clients through enhanced value propositions, consultant speak for price cuts that would destroy profit margins. August 12th. The day Derek's house of cards began collapsing. It started with Phoenix Distribution. David Kim called me at 6 a.m., his voice tight with controlled fury. "Brian, I need to ask you something. Did Winland ever lose an entire shipment of your client's merchandise?" My stomach dropped. "What happened?" 47 pallets of electronic components. Worth about $800,000. Supposed to be delivered to our Atlanta facility yesterday. According to their tracking system, it was delivered. According to reality, it's nowhere to be found. I knew immediately what had happened. Derek's automated routing system had reassigned the shipment to maximize truck utilization, probably sending it to a different facility without human verification. In the old system, an experienced coordinator would have caught the error. Under Derek's lean protocols, there was no human oversight until something went catastrophically wrong. David, let me make some calls. I still have contacts in the industry. Within 4 hours, I'd tracked down the missing shipment. It was sitting in a warehouse in Jacksonville, mislabeled and essentially lost in Derek's automated system. More damaging, I discovered this wasn't an isolated incident. Winland had misrouted or lost shipments for 6 different clients over the past month. The story broke in Logistics Pro Weekly 3 days later. Automation gone wrong, when efficiency costs more than it saves. The article detailed Winland's mounting operational failures, rising client complaints, and Derek's elimination of experienced oversight staff. But the real knockout punch came from an unexpected source. Emma Winland's former assistant, Monica Rivers, had been quietly documenting Derek's systematic dismantling of her late boss's business philosophy. Monica had access to internal emails, board presentations, and financial projections that showed Derek's true priorities, maximizing short-term profits to justify massive executive bonuses while destroying the company's long-term stability. The leaked documents revealed that Derek had received a $2.3 million bonus for operational optimization, while laying off employees who'd been with the company for decades. They showed his plans to eliminate the remaining senior staff and replace them with junior associates at half the salary. Most damaging was an email where Derek referred to longtime clients as legacy accounts with limited growth potential and suggested that losing them might actually improve the company's profile with investors. The logistics industry is smaller than people realize. Word spreads fast, and reputation matters. Within a week of the leaks, 3 more major clients announced they were terminating their contracts with Winland. The company's stock price dropped 22% in 5 trading days. Derek called an emergency board meeting, where he blamed the company's problems on industrial sabotage and corporate espionage. He specifically mentioned my new company, suggesting that I'd somehow orchestrated the operational failures to steal clients. The board wasn't buying it. Harrison Winland had built the company on trust, relationships, and operational excellence. Derek had systematically destroyed all 3 in pursuit of quarterly profit targets. September 30, Derek Jameson was terminated as CEO of Winland Logistics, effective immediately. The official press release cited strategic differences with the board regarding operational direction. The unofficial reality was that 3 more major clients had terminated their contracts, the company was facing 2 lawsuits over lost shipments, and the board had finally recognized that Derek's efficiency protocols were a disaster. I learned about his termination from Tom Bradley, who called me laughing. "Brian, you're going to love this." The board asked me to serve as a reference for potential new CEOs. First question they asked was whether I'd consider returning to Winland if they brought in the right leadership. What did you tell them? I told them I was very happy with Meridian Logistics, and that the best logistics professional I'd ever worked with was probably too busy building his own company to be interested in cleaning up someone else's mess. He was right. By October, Meridian Logistics had 15 employees and $12 million in annual contracted revenue. We'd landed 8 former Winland clients, not through aggressive sales tactics, but because we offered something Derek's corporate optimization couldn't: competent, relationship-based service delivered by people who understood the industry. Michael Torres had built us an operations infrastructure that combined modern technology with human oversight, automated where it made sense, but with experienced professionals managing the critical decisions. Rita Williams had established our West Coast office, bringing over 3 more experienced logistics coordinators who'd been casualties of Derek's downsizing. More satisfying than our financial success was the culture we'd created. No optimization protocols or efficiency metrics that treated employees like replaceable components. Instead, we'd built a company where experience was valued, relationships mattered, and people were trusted to do their jobs without micromanagement. Derek, I heard through industry contacts, had landed a consulting position with a firm that specialized in corporate turnarounds. Apparently, he was marketing himself as an expert in rapid organizational restructuring, the same expertise that had nearly destroyed Winland. The new Winland CEO, brought in from a competing firm, spent his first 6 months trying to rebuild the relationships Derek had damaged. He reached out to me personally, asking if I'd consider returning to help stabilize their operations. I declined politely. 28 years of my life had been dismissed as dead weight by someone who confused efficiency with effectiveness, who thought relationships were obstacles to optimization, who believed that experience was less valuable than MBA credentials. Now I was 54 years old, running a company that respected what I'd learned over 3 decades in the logistics industry. We were smaller than Winland, but we were growing steadily, profitably, and sustainably. Our clients trusted us. Our employees felt valued. Our service quality was setting new industry standards. Derek had been wrong about many things, but he'd been most wrong about this: I wasn't replaceable. 28 years of industry knowledge, client relationships, and hard-earned expertise couldn't be replaced by MBA optimization protocols or automated efficiency systems. The man who'd called me dead weight had learned, too late, who was actually replaceable. As I locked up the office that evening, I thought about Harrison Winland's words from all those years ago: "You've got hunger in your eyes, son. That's worth more than any fancy degree." He'd been right. Hunger, experience, and respect for relationships, those were the foundations of real success. Derek had forgotten that lesson, and it had cost him everything. I smiled, thinking about tomorrow's client meetings, next month's expansion plans, and the satisfaction of building something based on competence rather than corporate buzzwords. 28 years hadn't been dead weight after all. They'd been preparation for this moment, when I'd finally get to prove what I was really worth.